So welcome to our fourth in our professional skills workshop series. Tonight we're focused on vision and goal setting. If you haven't already, and many of you have, clearly you've been here previous weeks, please update your Zoom name with your team number in parentheses after it. It's wonderful to see folks from other teams joining us tonight, which is great. So welcome to everyone. As a reminder, and I say this each week, but do remember that um, some of you have seen and discussed vision and goals several times. Some of you, this will be your first time. Um, and so keep that in mind as we're sharing here in our, or with all the teams, all the people, as well as in your breakout rooms. Provide space for others to work through some of these concepts and also share your experience as well. And I always say, remember, like it doesn't stop after tonight. And that's certainly the case here because the captains for 3061 will lead you all in a revision of our vision and goals and objectives next week at the same time as well. So certainly doesn't stop now. So given that introduction, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Gupta, who will be leading us through the vision and goal setting session tonight. Thank you, Mr. Gupta.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Schmidt, and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining late on a school day. Great to see a good turnout and some members from other teams as well. So as Mr. Schmidt was saying, many of you, or at least some of you, have been introduced to the vision and goal setting as part of our professional skills workshops we have been doing. The idea is to refresh it and also to make sure that especially the new team members who hopefully are there a lot today, have a sense of where, sorry, I got a pop up. Sorry. Um, yeah, and then the new team members have a good view of what Huskie's robotics vision and mission and how to set up goals are, so that when we talk about all of the other things we have been talking in terms of culture and working as a team and inspiring others, that drives through a lot of the areas we're going to cover today. So with that, let me start off by sharing my screen. And hopefully it's now visible to everyone.
Looks great to me.
All right. All right, so let's set up our own goals for the workshop, right? Which is important when we talk about the goals itself. So reiterating the fact that we are laying the foundation for understanding the Husky Robotics vision, mission, and goals so that not only it is uh, understood by everyone as we go through the workshop where the various captains and leads we were working through breaking down the objectives and goals, but also this continues to be a guiding light post in terms of how we operate throughout the year and also how we make sure others in the team who are joining new and for future generations to make sure they are also driving the same behavior throughout, as the team engage. The other is, of course, to also lay out a few high-level frameworks on how you should think about continue to evolve your vision, objectives, and goals, because the way they need to be defined and executed is important, and not just laying it out for, defining it. It has to be instilled in whatever you do on a daily basis, and that's critical. So some of these high-level frameworks are important to make sure that's uh, executed well. And not just by leaders. And this is one of the things which I've seen in the past, and not just specific to schools or colleges, but in organizations as well, that sometimes the vision, mission, and things like that are thought of as things important to only the senior leaders or executives. But that's not the case, because we'll talk about examples later on, but if you see all the organizations in the world who are successful, have a shared view of what they're achieving. And that drives through not only being aware of these aspects, but also making sure they are implemented on a daily basis. So it's important for all team members is what I want to iterate, and not just for people who are necessarily in a role of a lead. So let's start with our why, and why again to reiterate why is it important to understand the vision and mission, and it's again the whole concept of keeping the end in mind, and not just the end of this build season or this year, but why Husky Robotics exists. What are we trying to achieve collectively, not only in the years we are associated, but also for the teams to come in the future. And of course, having a common understanding of our vision and the goals we want to achieve this year as well. Is to inspire the team currently and for the teams which are going to come. So all of you have seen Husky Robotics grow year over year, and the reason is that all of you have been very focused on implementing some of these things which we have been talking about. So these professional skills are really critical to build that culture. And that strong culture is going to make sure that we work as a cohesive team when it comes to not only the build season, but we go as competition. The impact award we get is because of the way we implement our culture and with that shared vision. So all of these common vision and goals is critical for the success, and which frankly Husky Robotics has been implementing and achieving. So it's great that you guys are already in that mode uh, and continue to inspire more as we move forward. So let's get a level set on what all these areas mean. And there's no need to go into just standard definitions. You guys can find that, of course, in the ChatGPT world. There's a lot of descriptions available for us, but it's just small little terms which helps you always remember what these means. So when we talk about vision, vision is always about what you want to be when you grow up kind of mindset, right? It's a very, when you're young, you'll say, oh, I want to be a pilot, I want to be this thing, or I want to go and, be the first person to go to Mars. I don't know, something like that. But the point is, it is just a vision. It doesn't have any plan. It doesn't need to be anything specific. Um, and it doesn't need to be associated with what you might be doing as a goal or a tactic. So it's just aspirational. The mission is, to some extent also aspirational, but it gets a little bit more specific about then it gets to specific to the task you're doing. For example, in the case of robotics, you might say we have a shared vision of creating innovative culture, but then the mission would be to create, the best team out there, something, a robotics team out there, something which is very specific to the organization or the activity you're doing. And then objectives, of course, get to desired results. And these are near term, but not necessarily, broken down to specific areas within the activities you're doing. Strategies and goals. I mean, goals then, of course, starts to get into very specific terms, and we'll talk about SMART goals and how to define them. Strategies are just frameworks and approaches you take to do that. Like SMART, we'll talk about that framework, is a framework or a strategy to define it. And tactics, of course, gets down to the actual steps or tasks you may do on a daily basis or weekly basis. So these are actual activities in a project plan, for example, where you list down and break out each section into the list of activities. But then you will have an overall goal or a plan to execute, which is then leading up to the mission or the vision you're guiding everything towards. So it gets down to the why, what, and how. And this is where you should watch a video. I think some of you may have the start with why. So the start with why, what Simon talks about is, you always have to inspire why you're doing this. You have to always explain to somebody why you're doing this before you actually get down to the what and the details of the how. So that needs to be definitely a shared vision or activity. So let's take a very brief example, maybe something which is not necessarily actually defined for Husky Robotics, but a very high level of at least connecting to the robotics world. So vision, for example, again, this is not specific or anything related between each of these, just as a way to very crude version of defining each of these definitions. So a vision could be, you want to be the best robotics team in the world. In fact, a vision does not necessarily have to call out robotics. This particular statement could have been just you want to be the most innovative engineering team in the world, right? It doesn't have to be anything to do with robotics. And the mission could be then get specifics to I want to be the best robotics team, or we want to create the best first robot in the world, and that could be a mission. An objective then breaks down all of those activities. In this case, you could be like one of the objectives we will talk about later is that you don't want any, as as a team, we don't want any major failures to happen during the competition. And for that to happen, now you might have a specific goal to say, let's improve our shooting accuracy by 40%. And that's a smart goal because you're defining a tactic and you're defining that this year you want to achieve it. And the strategy could be one of the strategies, build maybe multiple prototypes or a prototype. And through that, we can experiment and build or improve our shooting accuracy. And then, it helps us as one of the objectives, help us achieve to avoid major failures during the competition. And then one of the tasks could be in a plan could be, create the software design for a prototype, and then multiple tasks to create the 3D models, test it out, assemble it. All of those tactical activities will be multi-pronged within the goal itself. So this is a very crude example of how do you think about each layer from the vision all the way to an actual task. So we did talk about vision and mission, but then I want to relate back to the first session we did as part of this year's professional series is that the team culture is crucial or is the bond between all of these layers we are talking about. We know of many organizations which may have, actually all organizations have some level of vision, mission, values defined, but yet they fail. And the reason for that is that the culture of the organization or the team does not instill those actual definitions or the actual values which has been defined because it's not something which the team follows on a day-to-day basis or is not aware at every layer. There could be multiple reasons for why that is a failure because all of this cohesively has to be part of the team culture. And we talked about a lot of things in the team culture. What does that mean? To be passionate about something, to inspire others, to be professional, to be transparent and honest, have empathy. There's a lot of these things which we have defined, and all of that needs to be done on a daily basis, including crucial conversations and influence. That will make sure that when we are aware of mission and values, we also implement that in all the activities we do. So culture eats strategy for breakfast. I think culture eats vision, mission, values, and everything, to be honest, in that. So it could be breakfast, lunch, dinner when it comes to culture eats all of these areas. So the values are important as a belief, as a team, and all the team members, how we conduct ourselves and treat as well to achieve these vision and missions. And of course, it provides a framework for us to make decisions also, because all of these things means how do you make decisions? Every decision gets inspired. If Amazon says we are obsessive about customer, then every decision they take is inspired by making sure that the customer is front and center and the customer service is priority. Everything else comes secondary, right? So culture is key to that aspect. And then let's get down to actually some examples, and we can have a chat about it as well. We had these examples from last time. I didn't change them because these continue to be great examples in my opinion. LinkedIn, as an example, is if you see the vision they have, it says to create economic opportunity for every member in the global workforce. It does not talk about a social network. It does not talk about networking. It does not talk about job opportunities, anything. It just says create an economic opportunity for everyone. It could be multiple things they might do in that vision. And one of the mission would be to create the best professional social network in the world, which is what they have. So again, the vision is a lighthouse of what you want to achieve. Nike says, to remain more authentic, connected, and distinctive brand. They're talking about a brand. They're not talking about shoes. They're not talking about sports. They just want to be a very distinctive and connected brand, and focus on the word connected, because that's how they create that culture of cohesiveness with the people who look up to Nike as a brand or as inspiration. And then the first robotics has something similar, where they talk about to transform our culture for creating a world of science and technology, celebrating young people and the dream of becoming science and technology leaders. Again, it does not talk about robotics, right? It's again a vision of what we want to achieve. So, for example, we say it's not a SMART goal because it's aspirational. Same thing on the mission, the mission examples, right? Again, taking LinkedIn. So now, if you see how it's getting down to a little bit more specific, LinkedIn says to connect the world professionals to make a more productive and successful. So it says connect the world. It doesn't talk about, again, creating a social network. It just says let's connect the world professionals to create that vision, to meet the vision of creating the economic opportunity. Nike does now gets down to the athletic part, because before they were talking about the vision of being the best innovative brand. Now they're talking about being the inspiration and innovation for every athlete in the world. So that now it gets down to not just shoes, brands, clothes, everything they do, but focused on the athletes. And same thing for first. Now it gets down to creating engaging mentor-based programs, insights in engineering. It's still a little bit more vision-like, but at least it talks about specific areas of the values or inspiration it wants to drive. So with that, we talked about a few of the areas and definitions and examples, and the culture being very important, and also starting off with the first robotics areas as well. So what I wanted to have open the floor for everybody to have a discussion, or at least contribute to the conversation, is what are some of the organizations you see who have good vision, mission, or for example, a culture which has been inspiring. And as I said, a lot of these things are already incorporated, but what do you think is already a core principle or aspect for Husky Robotics, or your own team? Or if you think that there are certain aspects we should incorporate moving forward. So feel free to unmute yourself, share some thoughts, but give examples and maybe related to Husky Robotics for that matter. I see a first hand go up. So Franklin.
Yeah, one company that I thought was interesting was Google, that their vision statement is like to provide access to the world's information in one click, but then their mission statement is more about just like organizing information. And I thought that was really interesting, how even though they basically talk about similar topics, their mission and vision are still different and highlight like different parts of their company. So I think that's pretty cool with them.
Oh, great example. But maybe a follow-up question for you, Franklin. So why do you think Google is able to go down its path of achieving its vision and mission versus another organization which might have something similar?
I think what they do that's really cool is they do like a lot of building on innovating. Like when they have a product like Google search that is good, they don't stop there. They always keep on working to make it better and better and improving and releasing more products.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think I definitely agree. The innovative culture is what has drove Google to where it is now. It was more so in the past. It's still there, but it was one of the first organizations which started to have specific time allocated for every employee in the organization to go do anything they feel would be innovative, right? They had like 10-20% of your time go do anything which may not be specific to a task. You could work on a project. In fact, I think Gmail or Google Map has come out of those innovations where people have been given the empowering them to go focus on something they can build. All right, great example. Anybody else wants to share their thoughts? Hopefully somebody from the freshman, sophomore year. Or I might call upon our team captains, Ariana, Lotum, Ian. Sorry to call your name, but
Yeah, I can share. Um, one of the companies that I looked at was Wikipedia. Um, and their um vision is to share information, and their mission is to like actually create a widely accessible and free encyclopedia um that is user made.
yeah. And it's obviously an example which is related. It's a nonprofit and it strives to be that nonprofit without getting influenced or funded. So it sort of relates to, even though we have sponsors, we want to be independent and remain in that nonprofit mode. Maybe one more example. We'll move on. Anybody else? What about maybe just taking the other way around? What do you think is an example of a company with a bad culture or bad vision, mission, or culture for that matter? Yeah, all three. Can you think of anything? The one which comes to my mind is WeWork. I don't know if you, I'm sure you guys follow, but it's one of those organizations which had failed because it was striving too much. It was greedy in some sense, and there was lack of transparency, in at least from a leadership perspective. So that was, and again, um, maybe a good vision and mission, but the bad culture drove the company down from its peak a couple of years back to now basically trying to survive. All right, so let's keep moving, and then also now let's back. Oh, Aaron, sorry, for a second I saw you raise your hand. Feel free to share.
I not super knowledgeable on the goings on of companies, but I've heard a few things and sort of like things I immediately think, oh, that does not work as a vision or mission, especially with Husky Robotics as a reference. The biggest one to me is pretty much anyone that lists growth that high up on the vision or mission.
Great.
If growth is the purpose, then it's going to peter out once that slows down
Yep.
and fall apart.
Agree, and that's unfortunately a lot of the VC driven growth initiatives, which, even though it may not say in the vision mission, but it again goes back to the activities and the culture of the company, like just like we work where, um, ask for forgiveness later and keep doing and breaking rules, which unfortunately, drives down certain organizations, even though they may see success initially. Yeah, great for sharing. Good for sharing your thoughts. So yeah, on Husky Robotics. Now let's get down to some vision and mission for our own. Vision again, one thing which I have to mention that, obviously it can still evolve, but once a vision is set, it continues to be something which remains constant. Both and mission as well. You might refine it, but it doesn't really deviate a whole lot from where it started off. So our vision is to inspire every student to be a confident leader, courageous innovator, and passionate dreamer. Again, see, we're not talking about robotics for that matter. And our mission, of course, continues to be in the aspect of personal and professional growth, focusing on innovation and fostering a community outreach, work as a team, even though it says the annual model, it doesn't need to, and inspire the future leaders. So again, it doesn't really talk about a whole specific to robotics, right? So these are aspects which will continue to guide us in every decision, every task, every activity we do. And we need to make sure that all newcomers also understand, where we are heading towards, regardless of this year's season. And then some of the objectives and values. This might have been covered in previous sessions, but just to reiterate, we continue to focus on the community as well. It's not just about working with this team only. Of course, that's the goal, to be competitive, have fun, but build relationship in the community, strengthen with the robotics family as well, which is what we're doing. And I'm really great to see how we have outreach to other team members and help them join and build other robotics team as well. So that's great to see. And prepare team for the future. I mean, that is something Husky Robotics has done great. Again, from where it started off as a small unit, especially in the last few years, has continued to inspire others, build an outreach program, make sure that we work as mentors and teams. And of course, when we say become a world-class robotics team, I think Husky Robotics is already a world-class robotics team, but making sure that we always reach our championship and win is definitely everybody has an objective and goal. And our values continues to be making sure that we are inclusive and have sustainability targets, focus on the community, and of course, the gracious professionalism is important. Respect and empathy for everybody we work with, whether it's mentors, team members, other robotics teams, and being gracious in our competition as well. All right, so let's get down to from vision, mission, values, and our own. Now it gets down to goals, and no need to define goals. It's just something everybody understands. But a specific, obviously, aspect is the commitment you have, maybe long term and near term. It doesn't need to be only near term or short term. So, but it is a collective goal or a commitment to achieve as a team, as a person, or an organization. And how you achieve those goals really depends upon how you define them. This is where the SMART framework comes into picture. And the SMART framework, which we have defined in the past and a lot has been used, is applicable for both your personal and professional life as well. So SMART means being very specific with the goals. This doesn't need to be a vision type goal, like I want to create the best robot in the world. It has to be a very specific target, as we gave the example of, let's improve our intake efficiency or by 40%. It is measurable. There is an actual aspect or target or metric assigned to it, which you can measure the success of. It's attainable. By that mean you just, let's say you're starting off a robotics team and you set up a goal, be the best robot team in the world. I mean, while you could do that, let's be realistic about what you can achieve. So it should be an attainable. It should be not something which is too small as well. It should be a reach, but attainable. And it's relevant to when we say relevant, it again goes back to our what we're trying to achieve, our overall mission. And then, of course, it has milestone. You can't just say be the best robot in the world. You have to say best robot in the world by in the next 2 years, 3 years. I mean, that's a long-term goal, but a short-term goal will be something which is very specific. So SMART is a way to remember: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-based. And just for fun, some of the examples which we have kept again is to, in the realm of most of the people can relate to. I want to go gym more often is a starting point, but it doesn't define how you want to achieve it. You want to go 2 times a week, 3 times a week, or you want to say I want to go average of this, or I want to go to a gym more often by next month, right? I want to go to gym at least 2 times a week by next month. Taking the one at the bottom, I want to read 50 books this month. Yes, there are 50 books, and it's a very specific target, but is it really realistic? I mean, 50 books means you probably are reading more than 1 book a day. And while you might be a bookworm, and this could be achievable, but it's not achievable for most people. So again, as an example of what you can achieve, but still having a stretch goal. And on the right-hand side, same thing. I talked about the gym example. You could take the reading aspect. I want to study 1 hour or do 10 problems each day. Again, it's a very specific target. What do you want to achieve now versus something which is, you're just trying to define and put that in the future. A lot of people talk about New Year resolutions, which is coming up. Why do they fall? Because people, again, they define their goals, New Year goals, as very aspirational. They don't have specific targets. I want to become healthy by this time, or I want to start small, or how do you plan to achieve your goal is really important. And in that aspect, Husky Robotics, I think as a team, we have done great when it comes to now getting down to the objectives and goals. These are some of the objectives I think we have kept from last few years, but then where we have done more specific year over year is define the goals. And many of these areas you can see are in the realm of SMART goals. Others may not be, but that's the whole exercise we need to continue to do, which is one of the workshops which will come up with the team leads to make these objectives more specific and the goals a little bit more targeted. So there's a link to our mission goals, and most of you may have this. So maintain and build relationship with our community, strengthen our robotics family, prepare team for the future, become world-class robotics team. And in that sense, we are covering most of the aspects, right? How are we building a strong team, inspiring others outside the community, but also having specific targets of our championships, and how do we want to be much better in terms of execution or the robot we build, and how do we execute with the alliances. So a lot of these areas are related to what we'll continue to do, inspire others, and continue to refine. So with this, what we want to do as a breakout session with the team is take all of these objectives and maybe Mr. Smith, we can put this link in the chat if everybody does not have access to it. But take one of the objectives and maybe one or two goals within these objectives, and just discuss that within the group. See what are which we think are SMART goals within those objectives. Where are some goals we could define it better, make it a little bit more specific. And that is almost like a preparation of what we need to do in the next workshop, right? How do we get down to some specifics? Like this example where I was taking, in the Become World-Class Robotics team, we say have no major failures of qualification in final matches. Now, again, it's good, but it doesn't define exactly how do we measure major failure. Is it zero? No failure? What does it mean? I mean, or maybe, it gets down to something which is more time-bound. I mean, time-bound, of course, is the competition, but, we're getting to the point where we can be a little bit more specific with these. So let's break out in different groups and take one segment of what is a good or which could be better in these goals.
Right, so I put it in the chat, a link to the mission and goals. So go ahead and click on that now, so you have that open in another tab before we start breakout rooms. Mr. Gupta, how long do you think the breakout room should be? What works well?
I think usually we give 4 minutes. I think 4 should be fine.
Okay. Do you want to do the 4 minutes plus 1 minute to wrap up type thing?
Let's do 3 plus 1. Let's keep it short.
3 plus 1.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. So again, you'll see a 3-minute timer, and then you'll get 1 more minute to wrap up your discussions before you're brought back into our main room. I've got all the rooms set up here. So here we go.
Yeah. And please make sure all members contribute to discussion. All right. I think everybody's back, correct?
Yeah. Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome back. So yeah, we want to keep it short because we want to at least give opportunity for each group or team to share their thoughts. So let's start with group 1. I'm sorry, not able to see the groups anymore. So somebody from group 1 wants to share their thoughts? Or was it, how was it defined?
So
Sorry.
yeah, no. So group one is like AJ, Anish, Ariana, Elizabeth, Evie, and then if you want to jump in, no shoving, no pushing.
So like we kind of like mentioned how like one of the biggest like parts like one of the biggest ways you can kind of like ensure um attainability is just through like I was saying like during like the dinner meetings we could just like obviously you're not asking someone who's not like an expert or doesn't have experience in like a certain field that you need help with in your goal. um, it might help to some extent, but it's not going to be like as effective as like actually trying to find someone who has experience or actually knows about the subject. So like that's like kind of like a first step in attainability, just to find um, the people that can help you, and then move on from there.
Okay, so you were actually talking about how to continue to make the goals specific, or the approaches or frameworks you could use to define that on a daily basis. So that's good. Thinking a little bit more specific to the execution. Right. All right. Group 2.
Group
I
two
can
is
speak. Oh,
yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
I can speak to this. We decided to look at becoming a world-class robotics team specifically, and that objective is defined in our goals by qualifying for worlds largely. That is one of the goals, but it's then split down into the different ways you can do so. Be that winning regionals, winning awards, and then furthermore into the culture of a world-class team with the no major failures and the open alliance. It's basically a step-by-step move towards being a world-class robotics team, with the only flaw I see now being that due to its nature of being a year-by-year thing, it does need to be updated for next year, but that's part of its existence.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, I wouldn't call it a flaw. It's actually the outcome of a goal. The objective might not change every year. Maybe you'll add or modify that objective, but the goals are definitely more near or short term for that matter. But yeah, good point about the step-by-step approach to getting to some of these goals are interconnected, of course. Right. All right. Group 3.
This is Cooper, Stefan, Henry, Kelly, Nisa. Yeah, go ahead, Cooper.
So we chose to talk about like strengthening our robotics family, and I think one of the things we like talked about, like kind of didn't fully understand, was like how do we define like what participation within sub teams means, and how do we like measure that? And so like one of the things we came up with is like a goal you could say for that is like 20, maybe that's a little low, but like 30-40% of tasks are led and completed by like non-leads.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Actually, getting down to some specifics there. And again, yeah, some of these things, host a team bonding event, like by when and how often, or every quarter, every month. Yeah, getting down to some specifics again. Cool. Group 4. Sorry, I realize a lot of people may not know their groups.
This is Alex, Andy, Braden, Corey.
Right.
Our group also kind of did strengthen our robotics family. We were kind of going with the same things as like Cooper, where sometimes it's kind of hard to measure it, but we also kind of focused on not only making those goals, but kind of like following through on them, like being achievable or like big sibling, little sibling stuff, where like even if you like the big thing is it's kind of like a structural kind of goal to make instead of just a one meeting kind of goal. So we kind of talked about how in order to get that kind of measurable impact, you're gonna have to like kind of focus on doing this every week or so. So yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that every goal here has to be that SMART goal. There could be sub goals within it which are more contextualized to be specific, maybe week over week, as you said, some of those areas. Right. I think one more group, right? Group five.
We have plenty of groups. We have like 8
Oh,
groups. So I don't know
okay.
how, if you want to,
Maybe
if you,
let's do one more and move on. Sorry, I didn't
all right.
realize.
No. We have a lot of people here. So anyone from groups 5, 6, 7, or 8, basically, if your group hasn't gone yet, go ahead and raise your hand if you want to share out what your breakout room focused on.
Awesome. Glad to
Oh, we got a
listen.
couple. Perfect. Go ahead, Lodo.
So
Yeah.
we yeah. So we looked at I'm from group 6. We looked at the prepare team for the future goal mainly, and we read through it and saw that a couple of our sub points um like mainly hold technical leadership workshops don't have like uh time limits on when we're supposed to do them. So like for somebody who's a little less removed from the team won't be able to see like do we do this in season, preseason, and obviously we do it during the preseason. So just clarification on that.
All right. You're talking about this navigation of new members by the end of the next preseason. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Which being a little bit more specific about the season aspect. Go ahead, Noga.
Um, my group, we really focused on goal 1A, which is having 80% of our members have at least 8 service hours and our entire team having a median of 11 hours by our first competition. So
Mm-hmm.
what we saw with this and many in multiple other goals is that in our team, only like a certain part of the goal is actually stressed. So in this case, members having 8 service hours by our first competition is a big part of our team culture, but having a median of 11 is not as big. So trying to make trying to apply like more of the goals and like emphasizing the whole goal and not just specific parts could help achieve them.
Nice. Great point. That's a great catch as well. Yeah. There's a very specific ask in terms of the start, but yeah, having a much more still attainable goal, but something which inspires people to do more in that achieving. So yeah, overall medium could be much higher. That is something taken into consideration as we discussed during the workshop as well. Awesome, thanks for sharing. And these were actually great examples, and looks like we covered most of the objectives as well. So it was good to take that into the conversations we're going heading into next week. So let's bring it back home in terms of a few points. You know, we talked about the goal, vision, mission, all of those things, why culture is important to have as a cohesive aspect. And of course, we talk about project planning. We talk about a lot of the things the team is doing on a daily basis in managing the task, not just the technology itself, but the execution. So, of course, a goal without a plan is just a wish, as we say, right? So the framework of project management, the whether it be follow any particular methodology doesn't matter. But in our case, of course, we are focusing heavily on the sprint planning and being agile in our approach. Uh, the good aspect about this is that we are able to iterate very quickly, and that allows us to innovate, work in smaller teams, um, be more connected and discussion every week. So I don't need to talk about the Scrum framework itself. But for a lot of the team members, they need to really understand why do we follow this? And why don't we just do the traditional plan of a big giant framework or a plan, and then everybody sort of works in silos? And we have seen that in the traditional corporations, that silo culture. Take the example of Microsoft. Microsoft used to be a great company, and then it started to become too big and started to work in silos. And before Satya Nadella come in and inspired then innovative collaborative behavior, a lot of this aspect used to come into play. And then failure mode analysis, of course, is another framework. I don't think we are listing down everything here, but these are some areas to just list out as approaches we can take to continue to innovate. So potential failure modes of various part of the systems. This goes back to one of the objectives we have is to avoid major failures in the competition, and obviously to build the best robot in the world, or best first robotics robot in the world. So these frameworks, there used to be a different session, but feel free to work with your leads in terms of understanding these various frameworks to define a plan and how do we execute on a daily basis. And also what we do, there's, I think, a session from last few years on project management itself, which covered these topics in detail. So these videos are in the Huskie Robotics YouTube channel. So some final thoughts. So we, all of these things, again, reiterating the same points, that none of these things will actually be realistic unless we are not only thinking about this on a daily basis, but inspiring others to use our vision goals as lighthouse, smaller to big lighthouse, when we work through our plan, when we build and communicate within each other. And the last piece is, any of these things doesn't mean that everything has to be perfect to begin with. This also doesn't mean that we have to be lazy or don't need to do a good job. It still doesn't mean that the whole idea of the sprint cycle is to continue to move forward in a very effective way using these guiding principles. And while we want to be perfect, it should not stop the action. It should not stop us from executing what we want to achieve. So as we say, perfect is the enemy of getting done. Get started, iterate, achieve what you need. So with that, let's just all make sure that we are aware of our mission for Huskie Robotics. We continue to adopt the culture on a daily basis. And with this, I think we are wrapping up our series. With this year, we have done a smaller volume of the professional skill series. We didn't call it leadership because we want to make sure everybody joins, and also keep it shorter so that it gives you the introductory or foundational aspect, and then you can go and dig deeper or learn more from mentors and from, of course, the community and various sources. So thank you again, everybody, for the time and joining so late on the school hour. Back to you, Mr. Schmidt, to wrap it up.
Thank you so much to Mr. Gupta for leading us in our workshop this evening. I'm going to put in the chat here a link to our Keep Fix Try. So please, today or tomorrow, you can click on that now, provide some feedback on this session or all the sessions, or maybe a previous session that you're reminded of. Next week, same time, the captains will lead you all through refinement of our mission, goals, objectives. As you all noticed during the breakout room, there are certainly some revisions to be made. So that will be the focus of next week's time. So thank you again, Mr. Gupta. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. And we hope to see you next week.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.